We're back and we're talking about the Odyssey. Sorry for the 2-week sabbatical. I was on a trip traveling around Italy. So yeah, but we're back and we're going to talk about the Odyssey movie and some of the pushback it's been getting, of course, from both sides, I guess, or just sort of hearing everybody out in this case position. We're just kind of going to hop into this one. I don't have a ton of videos I want to look at. I more just want to look at the general arguments that I've heard going on both sides about this, and then talk about some feedback I got from some actual Greek people and some experts on Homer.
We need to talk about the Odyssey. Christopher Nolan's latest project, The Odyssey, has some very interesting casting choices, and people online are discussing and, frankly, going after him because of it. Someone even did an AI remake of Troy versus 2004 versus the Odyssey of 2026, and you can see you have Brad Pitt as Achilles, you have Helen of Troy, and you have Athena, the goddess. And now here is where you have Athena, Achilles, and Helen of Troy. The interesting thing is...
Pause real quick. That is actually not the actor playing... playing Achilles. That's not... Elliot Page is not playing Achilles. We're going to get more into that in a minute, but I did want to pause and highlight that real quick.
Really about Achilles. So hiring Elliot Page to play an aging Brad Pitt doesn't even make sense. Brad Pitt is alive. They could easily have cast him to come back and play the ghost of Achilles in the underworld. He's older, he's aging, and so it would be in line with the story. But for some reason, they didn't. I mean, Helen of Troy from 2004 to Helen of Troy of 2026. And this isn't to say that this woman is unattractive or should be attacked for her looks. I'm just saying that from the historical standpoint of how the characters from the book were written, she doesn't match the description. I just struggle to understand why, when you're making a movie that's based on a book, you know, from a historical standpoint or wanting to be accurate according to the book, you wouldn't try to make it as accurate and therefore as successful as possible. We need to talk about the...
Before we go any further, I actually want to play kind of, not really a trailer, but an edit, a teaser of the trailer of the movie coming up, just to sort of show what's being put out about it. It's more pro than con, so we're gonna look at that real quick too.
Tell me what you remember.
A wife, a son.
And then what?
We won the war.
This is a household waiting for master.
Ithaca's king is coming back.
No, he's not.
What would he do if he came back here and find all these suitors in his house?
They're pining for a daddy.
Do you see?
Bringing your family candidates.
Bringing it all.
You're a man who needs to control his fate.
Honestly, I'm probably gonna go see it just because it does look good. Personally, like, it does look good to me, at least. There's a lot of people who feel like it doesn't, but you know, that's a subjective thing. We are going to, of course, get into some of the controversy and stuff, and some of it is very legitimate, but like, videography wise, it looks good. I do think with this cast and with this crew and with this sort of idea, this genre, they could have taken it in a different direction that wasn't explicitly the Odyssey and done just as equal of a masterpiece. And I think that's going to honestly be the biggest takeaway here, is that this could have been a good movie with everything that they have if it wasn't the Odyssey. I think that is basically going to boil down to what the real solution or outcome of this. But of course, I'm jumping the gun here. One of the biggest things that I first want to touch on is the armor. There's a lot of concerns and complaints around the armor from the movie. We're going to talk about some other stuff in a minute. Let's just start off with, if it was actual armor from the era, it would look something similar to this. And, you know, I personally, as a history nerd, would think that'd be kind of cool, but in film and videography, I don't think that would play well in the wrong one. I could be wrong. Of course, there are a ton of people like me who's a history nerd who would love that, but I can see the idea of maybe not going with this armor specifically. However, I did find a video of a girl talking about part of the situation when it comes to the Odyssey that I think illuminates something kind of interesting, perhaps, when it comes to this, and maybe the armor isn't as good as it could be, given what we have, and it could have been more historically accurate without being exactly what I showed.
Theater to the new Odyssey movie better be empty, because what the hell do you mean? What the hell do you mean that the team for Christopher Nolan's new Odyssey movie reached out to Dimitrios Katsikis, who is considered the expert on Greek armor? This man is an actual blacksmith whose work is so accurate down to the material and the method of making it that his armors have been featured in museums. He is considered one of the best blacksmiths of now. His work is so beautiful. The team for the new Odyssey movie reached out to him and said, hey, we're making an Odyssey movie. Do you think we could collaborate? And he said yes, because he was excited by the concept of working on a big budget movie and having historically accurate Greek armor. And then they ghosted him. Not told him, hey, we're moving in a different direction. Didn't say, sorry, maybe you're a little bit out of our budget. No. They never responded back.
She just continues to go on for the rest of that video, reiterating that point and making her feelings about it well known. So, we're just gonna move on from there. But that is basically the armor, and there are people, of course, saying, you know, it should be historically accurate. Okay, I hear you. We see the complaint, looking at it from both sides. We're gonna get into something else that comes up with this historical accuracy in a second. All right, let's talk about the two most controversial actors for this movie. And then I have thoughts on another two that I want to share. But let's talk about the two most controversial actors of the movie. Here's the full cast. Firstly, a cast of this many A-listers is a little concerning because movies with this many A-listers, it tends to get a little weird. Okay, so that's the first concern. From me, personally. Not part of the four that we're going to talk about, though. Firstly, we have the race swap. I'm not even going to try to pronounce her name. I'm sorry. I couldn't. Now, firstly, if you go on Blue Sky, or if you go on Threads, or if you end up in like far left Instagram or TikTok, you're gonna find people claiming. Actually, you don't even have to go far left TikTok. The View did this. The View did this. I am not inserting a clip. I refuse to go watch that. However, you have people claiming that the Greeks could have been black. To say that this actress should have been, you know, her being cast is okay. Now, I'm a history nerd who minors in history at school, particularly ancient world Mediterranean history. So I might be a little equipped to answer this question, but no, not really. So no, not really. There's claims that, you know, heavy influence could have been black or just black influence upon ancient Greek culture, or that, you know, they didn't view race the same. I'm gonna tell you right now that Helen of Troy was not black and the Greeks were not black for two reasons. One, for the Greeks in general, we do have DNA reports. I'll put that up on screen. Okay, we had DNA reports. Greeks weren't really black at that time period, or really ever. As for they didn't think of race the same, or she could have been, Homer specifically in his works described black people as people with burnt faces. Okay, that's what he said. There's no confusing this. Helen, of course, was described with having light gray or blue eyes in the Odyssey, the poem. So yeah. Also, Helen of Troy is supposed to be so beautiful that wars are fought over her. This is my opinion. Beauty is somewhat subjective. There is an objective beauty, but beauty is somewhat subjective. I personally don't think I'd start an argument over her.
It is so bad, I want to give you a 0, but that's not possible. So I give you a 1.
Then again, just in comparison to things, war, straight up war. And I don't see that. I don't see that fits that. I mean, there's plenty of gorgeous black women in Hollywood who are way more attractive than this girl. I'm, of course, being facetious with the argument comment, but, you know, I'm just not seeing the vision here for Helen of Troy. Moving on to the next actor. We have Elliot Page, who's been very controversial in this. Honestly, he's not playing Achilles. With the last rumor I heard, the character that he's probably playing actually kind of fits what his physical, like. And there are, like, you know, claims of, you know, it should go to a biological male who's a man. Like, I, for one, am actually for integrating people with gender dysphoria who transition and act in the world as, you know, the gender they want to be perceived as. I'm all for kind of just giving them, unless we're talking about direct, privacy-based biological spaces or awards, then I really don't care. I don't care. That's kind of the whole point of Elliot Page transitioning, is so that he could take on male roles. So, I mean, he looks like a guy, he'd be playing a guy, he kind of fits the description, and honestly, Elliot Page is not a bad actor in my opinion. Obviously, there's better actors, people are going to come from for that one, but there are better actors, but he's not a bad actor. That's just my opinion, though. I do think the outrage of this is a little played up and... to kind of feed into the whole we don't like trans people thing, when in reality, when you try to get actual like results or coming together on that issue, there really isn't much, and I really think the best solution is just letting people like Elliot play roles like this. Like, I think it's fine. Now for the last one, or I should say two. This is a combo. Zendaya and Tom Holland. I think Zendaya is a decent actress. However, she does seem to have one facial expression kind of on repeat.
What was that? Okay, James.
Again, Tom Holland, great actor. Why are they always in movies together? And why are we like so many A-listers in one movie that just never ends well, guys? It just doesn't. It doesn't end well. And so I think this one might be a little of a overplayed situation where we have the two of them together in a movie. All right, I'm gonna yap about the source material just real quick, okay? Beauty-wise, again, I already touched on this. Helen of Troy is described with like blue-gray eyes and extremely beautiful. I don't feel like the actress fits this description. However, you know, Achilles is described as very clearly a white guy. So there were concerns about him being cast as murdered, but that's not happening now. But again, these are very clearly described as white individuals, or at least European individuals. Personality changes to the original characters have occurred. There are some that have been caught kind of like in the trailers by hardcore nerds who really, really love the Odyssey, and they're like, hey, this character, like Anne Hathaway's character, she's not acting in the way she was described in the Odyssey. There's going to be a reason for that in a second. We're going to get there. So, yeah. And as for like the impact of the source material and why a lot of people really feel like this is an important thing to, you know, get somewhat accurate to the source material, Homer's work didn't just define culture, it helped to create the language that the Greeks used. It helped to create a method of story that would continue to be used for generations, and it's something that not just defined Greece and the Greeks, but would go on to define the entirety of the West and Western culture. What Homer does would build something, the backbone upon which the West itself would be built upon. Okay, so this isn't just some inconsequential story. This is a fundamental story to the things that built the West as we know it today. The ideas of democracy that we hold so near and dear can be tied directly back to influences from the Odyssey and the Iliad. So Homer's work isn't just something to... Okay? Why do I drive that point home? Because the adaptation used is acclaimed as a progressive revision of Homer's work. The adaptation used is directly acclaimed to be an adaptation that is considered progressive, that is not a one-to-one of Homer's work. And so it makes sense that this is something that we might end up with when we're using that sort of adaptation. And for something that's important, I'm not a fan of like shoving these sorts of things and intentionally warping the source material to fit a narrative that is intentionally progressive when it is such an influential text. And now, of course, there are people who have said that this doesn't matter, that it is a myth, that is irrelevant. To that I say, okay, cool, this is a foundational myth to the West, and the West is predominantly white. So how about we retell an Aztec story with an all-white cast and set it in South America? How about we retell a traditional African myth with an all-white cast and set it in Africa? You guys would lose your minds over it. So I think if we can respect one culture, we can respect another. One of the other big things that have kind of come up with this movie is, in terms of historical accuracy, is the usage of language. For me, it's a modern movie remake. Like, I'm not going to be that much of a stickler. However, some of the language used is just so Gen Z brain rot, it is concerning. And it takes away from the immersive nature of a movie when you get jarred out of those things. That has been something that has been complained about for a while, actually, when it comes to movies, is that they used to be a form of escapism, somewhere we could go to sort of forget our reality and immerse ourselves. That's why the Avatar movies are so popular. When you use this hyper-modern language in a movie that is supposed to be cast in the past, that breaks that spell and pulls you out of it. So that is one complaint that I have heard that I can kind of also agree with. Looking at some other choices that have been made when it comes to this movie. Travis Scott is supposed to be performing in this movie with the addition of trap music. I don't know about you, but I honestly think that's a little messed up, personally. It's just kind of not cool, dude. So I kind of see it as a slap in the face to things. Personally, like, I see that as a slap in the face. And then they go as far as to compare, like, trap music and rap music to Homer's original method of writing. I personally don't see much of a similarity besides, they're both spoken words with supposedly a rhythm. Cool. Those are not... I'm sorry, Travis Scott's music is nowhere on par with the works of Homer. I just don't see it. I don't see the vision. I don't. I'm sorry. I'm going to be a hater on that one. I genuinely don't see the vision. Okay? I do, though, think that, like, the concerns of historical accuracy have been taken way too far. Let me talk about what the Greeks and the actual Homer people who know what they're talking about had to say to me when I approached them on social media asking for feedback. I got it in my DMs, mostly a few comments here and there. What they had to say overwhelmingly was they're not happy. Some felt like their culture was being erased, others felt like it was just a complete subversion, and some shared my exact same mini crash out about the fact that this is a foundational myth to not just Greece but the West itself, and that if this was done with any other ethnic group besides white people, it would be considered wrong. So most of them felt that way. A few felt like it was going to be okay. Some of them were like, you know what, actually, I'm excited to go see the movie. I can't wait to go watch it. It's an adaptation, it's art, blah, blah, blah. I actually kind of agree with that, and I'm probably going to go watch the movie and view it in that exact context as well, where it's art. Let's go enjoy the art. It might not be the best art, it might not be the best rendition, and honestly, it might really be nice if they'd make a new movie instead of just continuing to remake stuff or just take stuff based off of already existing texts and actually make a new story for us, but we know they're not going to anytime soon, so let's just go try to enjoy this. That's kind of where I'm at with this one. But then you get idiots like this. Anyways, to continue talking about what I actually am talking about in this closing bit, a lot of them really did feel that way, though. And some actually were supportive of the idea of Elliot Page playing the ghost of Achilles, which he's not going to be doing, but they were supportive of it because it does somewhat actually kind of make sense, especially if we give the guy a wig or something to kind of like match because Achilles is blonde. But he does kind of match the more skinny, such. So yeah, that's kind of what, for the most part, what Greeks and Homer experts had to say to me when I reached out and asked about that was their feedback, for the most part. Some of the other feedback involved some vulgarities that I will not be sharing. Others were strongly, they were very much so in favor of it. They did not see this as a subversion or an issue at all, and they felt like or in some cases a lot of, the concern was ridiculous, which is their opinion. I don't think all of the concern is ridiculous. I do think some of it is a bit much. But all in all, I do think there are some very legitimate concerns when it comes to this movie. I think my primary two are the overwhelming amount of just A-listers and the blatant subversion of a foundational myth to the West and Western people, which is mainly Europeans, which is mainly white people, and how if this was flipped with any other race, that would not be okay. Those are my two main concerns, honestly. Like the armor, I honestly think the armor that they went with looked cool. It probably could have looked better if they worked with the one guy that the girl was talking about that they ghosted. Probably would have looked better. But I do think the armor that they have does look cool as it is. So yeah, I think I'm gonna close that out. Please put your thoughts in the comments. Apologize my crash out and fighting with a leftist. I'll probably, yeah. But yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe, turn on the notification bells, whatever else you're supposed to do and I'm supposed to say. Thank you guys. I hope you'll have a great rest of your day. And yeah, let me know if you go see the Odyssey movie too. Like, come back to this video if you go to see it and tell me what you think after the fact. I would love to hear it because I'm gonna go see it. I might put something out, like a short 5-minute review since I've covered this. But yeah, peace.